We are back with another episode of Real Talk, Michigan Football Edition. It's your guy Jeff here, returning guest Dan. Dan, how are you, sir?
Good, buddy. Nice to see your face. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good, man. I am good. I should say I'm decent. I'm not so good after this past weekend, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But outside of that, I'm excited to talk football. Unfortunately, I'm not as geeked as I probably would have been 5 days ago, but
Right.
it is what it is. We're here. Let's rewind because we weren't able to recap um, Michigan's victory over Minnesota. So with that being said, the last time we talked on this pod, we kind of knew that Michigan was going to play, and we knew they were going to play Minnesota, and they played Minnesota, and they put the whooping down on them. They win 49-24. Does that sound right?
That is correct.
Okay, 49-24. We get to see a little bit of Joe Milton, and I think he was 15 to 22, 200 some odd yards. He looked solid, nothing crazy. It was a very weird game. Lots happened, but ultimately, Michigan picks up the W and gets high praise from a lot of people. They get high praise from Michigan fans. They get high praise from Urban Meyer, even Joe Klatt. All your bigwigs are talking about Michigan and what they were able to do on the road at Minnesota. I was at your house for the game. There was a bunch of people there. We enjoyed the game. We were having fun. What were your initial reactions leaving that game going into week two?
Um, they were positive. When we were talking in the preview episode of the Michigan Ohio State seasons, um, I was kind of marking this game down as I want to say a swing game, but a potential upset. And that being Minnesota beating Michigan. But leaving that night, I felt pretty good, but in the preview, I mentioned that the Wolverines are at a point where they make me believe it. They gotta prove to me on the field, uh, in order for me to I say get back on the bandwagon or really to put my heart and soul in there. Because again, our hearts have been ripped out before. Uh, but
Yeah.
this game, Joe Milton played pretty well. Like I said, like you said, 15 of 22. I don't think he turned the ball over. Did some things with his feet, kind of like a Cam Newton. I know that he got a lot of comparisons to Cam Newton, especially with his physique. But he moved the ball, he extended plays. The run game looked pretty good. As Haskins had 2 touchdowns, he seems like still the power type guy. And Charbonnet is that north and south guy as well, but uh, he's basically just a straight line kind of guy, and he broke a big one. I think that was like the first play of the game on their offense. Um, Overall, I thought the 24 points to me in my mind was a little higher than I wanted it to be. I wanted them to put Minnesota probably in the teens for me to be really impressed completely. But it was a road win, ranked road win at the time. So Jim Harbaugh got the W there, but Bateman, their star receiver, went over 100 yards with 9 receptions, but really wasn't a factor through the second half, I don't think. And um, their star running back Ibrahim, he went 142 on the ground, touchdown wise. So uh, their offense had their stars get their food there. They feasted a little bit, but uh, bottom line is Michigan got the W.
Yeah, truthfully for me, that my biggest takeaway was just how well we were able to run the ball. I had pointed out to a couple of friends, and even that night, when we were watching the game was so weird because like they come out, they go 3-and-out, they get a blocked punt, Minnesota scores off it on like 2 plays, and then Michigan gets the ball back. They 1 or 2 plays,
Then
they go
yeah,
70 yards with Charbonnet, and
yeah,
then after that they kicked it off to Minnesota. Minnesota's buried deep in their own territory, and it was either like a fumble or pick, whatever you want to call it. Michigan takes it back, so now it's 14-7. Minnesota then kicks a field goal. It's now 14-10, and then all of a sudden they kick it off to Michigan. Barrett takes it like 67 yards, and then Michigan takes 2 more plays and gets it in. It's 21-10 before you can even know it, and Michigan hasn't ran more than 5 plays on a drive yet. It's like it was such a weird start to a game, and truthfully, the rest of the game kind of ended up going like that, where Michigan never needed to drive the ball down the field. They never had to string together 5 to 8 to 10 plays in a row in order to score. They were just able to, muster up big plays and big runs. And at the end of the day, Michigan looked like a juggernaut. Urban Meyer was on record saying that it was the best game that Josh Gaddis had called since he's been to Michigan, and it was the best offensive game that he had thought Michigan had called under Jim Harbaugh, period. So, I mean, despite what you think of Urban Meyer, he knows his X's and O's, and I don't know. I felt really good going into rivalry weekend against the in-state rival Michigan State. So let's go ahead and get right into that. Prior to this game, Michigan goes up, I believe it's 21.5-point favorites in Vegas. Is that it was rough. It was over 20 points.
It was either 21 or 24.
Game. So Michigan State drops week 1 to Rutgers. That goes into the betting odds. Michigan demolishes what was thought to be a ranked opponent in Minnesota. That goes into the betting odds. They throw this spread out there in a rivalry game that I think a lot of people, myself included, not sure how you felt about it. We didn't really talk about it, but I think we thought we were just going to obliterate Michigan State. So first off, our expectations are set way too high. Typical Michigan fashion, right? Second thing, it turns out that Minnesota, one night before we play Michigan State, gets obliterated, not obliterated, but offensive just onslaught on them by Maryland. Maryland takes them to task, drops, I think, 49 on them. So I think they've given up 49 twice. So that right there, and I kind of thought it in my head, but I'm like, nah, that right there should have been the first red flag. Wait a minute, maybe Minnesota's actually, and we're not as good as, we thought we were blowing them out. Second thing is Rutgers. I think they played Indiana, correct? Week 2? And they lost by maybe like 10 points, 14. It was a closer game so it's like, wait a minute, maybe Rutgers is decent. So it's like Michigan State turned the ball over, I think it was 7 times. I don't know. There was a lot of things going into this game that made Michigan fans think they were going to win. But in reality, when you really start to think about it, Michigan State wasn't nearly as bad as we thought they were going to be. Clearly. The score is 27-24. Give me your initial reactions, and I mean, I got lots to add on this game, but give me your game assessment, not post game. Let's just talk about the game itself. What did you think about the game itself?
Well, first, I mean, disappointing, but overall, Joe Milton got bashed pretty bad for this one, and I don't really think it's this one's on Joe Milton. I knew in the preview, or when we did a preview, I knew Michigan State is always going to have, at least since D'Antonio, they're always going to have a solid caliber defense. What I take away from this game is obviously there's glaring weaknesses in the secondary. We know that Avery Thomas opted out beforehand in the season, so that hurt a lot. You got a lot of fresh new faces and question marks. And, when you and I were watching the Minnesota game, we're looking at players that we've never even heard of before.
Yeah.
I also underestimated Rocky Lombardi. I said in the preview, I'm not one least bit nervous or scared to play him. He really, I mean, let's be honest, was hurling jump balls, and they were living off pass interference penalties for this entire game. He throws for 323, 3 touchdowns. And Vincent Gray and Jermon Green, they hopefully have, in the nicest way possible, dementia, because they are going to have short-term memory when they play really through the remaining parts of the season, because they are going to be heavily targeted all game long. But the Michigan offensive line didn't look great. They could not run between the tackles. And the play calling, I think, on Michigan's side offensively, especially with Gaddis, did not look great. But part of that in the run game that didn't look great was the end arounds and the reverses, because if they can't run up between the tackles, they're going to have to do something to obtain yards, because you cannot expect Joe Milton to dissect a defense every time on 3rd and long. So they definitely got exposed on the offensive line and in the secondary. The Eric All, the tight end, I think he's a freshman this season. He's back-to-back weeks dropped a few passes. That's going to hurt if he can't fix that. The one bright spot I liked on Michigan in this game was Corum. He's a nice little scat back, and the more they utilize him, the more. I really liked seeing him with the ball in his hands. But anyone who's watching or listening to this in the future, I really think if you're a Joe Milton hater, I think you really need to reassess what your beliefs are, because the second string quarterback on Michigan's roster in recent memory has been the most popular player on the team, because as soon as a player doesn't show everything, they immediately are like, well, you got to put this guy in. Joe Milton didn't really have a lot of time to throw the ball. He did 32 completions for 300 yards, no touchdowns. I don't think he threw a pick. Did he throw a pick? Maybe one pick?
So he did not. No, I'm gonna allude to that. Let me hop in here, because you said something that I want to piggyback on. So I've been pretty vocal a few different times on this pod, not even just Michigan pods, just in general over the course that I've had this podcast in 2020, that I've said that Joe Milton is the guy that I wanted to see at quarterback. And there's a lot of Michigan fans today and yesterday and the day before that and during the game on Saturday that are putting a lot of blame on Joe Milton. So first off, Joe Milton struggles in one area, in my opinion. He struggles to connect with deep vertical passing. It seems like he hasn't even had an opportunity to throw an interception, because he's missing them long. He's missing them way long. Like, it's just uncatchable balls, okay? But I want to give you a statistic that I pointed out to a couple of friends that, are some Michigan fans, and I've also had some non-Michigan fans that I've pointed this statistic out to. So Joe Milton on Saturday threw the ball 51 times. First off, that is a recipe for disaster. I don't care how good you are. And you're like, well, what do you mean? Well, let me just give you some statistics here. So in the NFL, throwing 50 times is a recipe of disaster as well. Drew Brees is second in NFL history throwing 50 or more times in a game. He's done it 19 times, okay? His team's record in those games, 4-15. Peyton Manning has done it 17 times. His team's record, 4-13. Dan Marino has done it 16 times. His team's record, 5-11. And this isn't a time for me to plug Tom Brady, but Tom Brady is 19-9 in those games. Obviously, Brady's a special type, whatever. This isn't about Brady. This is about the fact that 51 pass attempts is not it's not logical, and that's not the way to win a football game. Now, you could probably sit here and argue that they were down the majority of this game, and I would agree, but it was never outside of one possession until the fourth quarter when it became 10 points. They ran the ball, and everybody says they ran it poorly, and I kind of agree, but at the same time, they didn't run it so poorly. 34 carries for 152, 4.5 yards a carry in 3 touchdowns. That's not poor.
It's really not poor, but it's a little skewed a little bit, because Hassan Haskins he was 8 for 56. So your favorite back on this roster,
he is my favorite.
Obviously, he's clearly the better back if he's getting 56 yards on 8 carries, and you have Chris Evans going 3 for 10. So obviously they rode the coattails of Haskins a little bit more this game, but
by riding his coattails, they gave him 8 carries.
I know,
because
Joe Milton led with 12 carries.
Yeah, and that shouldn't be happening. truly. I mean, it just shouldn't. So here's the statistic that's just mind blowing. Forget about what you know about this game. Forget about the teams, whatever. I'm just gonna give you some facts here. 452 yards to 450. Okay. 300 yards to 323. 152 yards rushing to 126. They said you beat this up in the Michigan Ohio State preview when we were going game by game. They talked about it just like you said they would in the pregame. 45 of the last 50 Michigan State-Michigan games is decided by the rushing leader. Michigan wins the rushing battle here, okay? They even outgained them as far as they had less attempts and they had better yards per carry, okay? They had the time of possession battle won 33-47 to 26-13. Neither team turned the ball over. There's one deciding glaring factor between these two teams because obviously you're like, well, the score is not. Well, here's Michigan on first down, 28-20. The biggest difference though is the penalties. Michigan has 86 yards of penalties, 10 penalties to 5. It just seemed like Michigan could not get there together on the outside. Their corners were getting beat up. Joe Klatt said it literally after the first penalty. He goes, wow, that's a tic-tac foul. He goes, if they're going to call it that tight, Michigan's in for a long day because Michigan's notorious in the Big Ten for holding or for tugging or whatever you want to say. They play aggressive with their corners. They always have. They've left them on an island. That's how Don Brown operates.
Mm-hmm.
This one's tough, man, because we're gonna get into the post game here in a second, but looking at this, Michigan didn't necessarily deserve to lose, and there's a lot of people today that are calling for Harbaugh's head, and I don't know that this is the game to do that for. And there's well, they didn't win, it's a rivalry. I understand, but from what I just read you, everything I just read you, are you disappointed in this loss?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But how? You get more first downs, more total yards. They win the rushing battle, time of possession. They don't turn the ball over. They never turn the ball over.
You know what, though, is I understand that the stats are neck and neck, or if they kind of favor Michigan's department other than the penalties. The reason why I disagree is because this game is a must-win for U of M. And I don't want to venture off into the Ohio State territory at all, but I'll say this. The gap between Ohio State and Michigan is obviously gargantuan. And with D'Antonio now out of the picture, and you have a first-year Mel Tucker, who, went 5-7 at Colorado, is basically, I mean, let's face it, this entire offseason of COVID, Mel Tucker has probably spent 85% of his team meetings virtually Zooming everybody. So he has less time to prepare. We got a second-year offense under the same offensive coordinator, which has been Harbaugh's kind of a glaring weakness here, is rotating these offensive coordinators like a quarterback carousel. And this is a must-win game. You are just now getting a foothold of the state back after D'Antonio's 2 tumultuous years after winning the conference and all that jazz, whatever. This was a must-win game. This could potentially be a lot longer lasting down the road. Remains to be seen. But this was it's been since Nick Saban at Michigan State where a first-year Michigan State head coach beats U of M. This was gargantuan rather for Mel Tucker. So I'm very salty about this win or about this loss for U of M. And do I think Jim Harbaugh needs to get fired? I don't think. I think his seat is where it's so hot you can't sit down. If he was anywhere else, or if this was any other coach, this would warrant maybe not necessarily a firing, but an assistant somewhere should be on the chopping block. By the end of the season, if this routine happens again against someone else, if it happens this week against Indiana, Don Brown should at least get canned, because that is unacceptable. Unacceptable.
So let's pump the brakes quick. So I'm going to challenge you a little bit, because I tend to be the more positive. You tend to be the more not just realistic, but more of the I don't know, more cutthroat, I guess, in this sense. Michigan struggled in one area in this game. One area. Their corners. They let a rookie, I say rookie, a true freshman, go for 8 catches, 196 yards, and a touchdown. And they had 10 penalties. And I bet you any money, 7 of them were in the secondary. They struggled in the secondary. That's it. And we're calling for Harbaugh's head. They never turned the ball over.
I understand that they didn't turn the ball over. But, again,
they played a good game.
Statistics show, again, like I said, I don't blame Joe Milton for as much as the other fans are calling for his head. However, the Michigan State offense literally have brand new freshmen and new faces all over that, besides Rocky Lombardi. Okay. Again, Joe Klatt pointed out in the beginning of the game, if they're going to call the tic-tac fouls, let them rip. Okay. And when they let them rip, these corners are not turning their heads around. Okay. Secondary, obviously, glaring weakness. But their defensive line did not generate a single sack after demolishing Minnesota last week. Kwity Paye had like 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. They had an interception last week. Looking at this right now, they had 2 tackles for loss. They had, like I said, no sacks. They had 2 quarterback hurries. So even when Rocky Lombardi is sitting back there flinging them, I mean, he could have dumped it down to torch him on a screenplay if he wanted to. He had all day to throw. So the glaring weakness, again, stat-wise, and what you see on the penalties is the secondary. This defensive line, we talked about in the preview, they need to step up. They didn't step up to this game. And watching this on the field, I'm not in the locker room, of course, but watching the body language, Aiden Hutchinson looked gassed, Carlo Kemp, Donovan Jeter, non-factors. And what bothers me is all this hype from the coaches and all from the fans of, look, Aiden Hutchinson, he's putting on the shades of like Joey Bosa. It's like, dude, no. This game was clearly won by the Spartans more, and it's not on paper the worst game. You just cannot lose to Michigan State's first year head coach. You just cannot do it. That's why Jim Harbaugh should be on a very hot seat. But that's just me. Again, that's why you and I like having these conversations with you, because we generally, this is our religion, but we tend to interpret the scriptures a little differently.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't think you're wrong. For me, and we've never talked about this, but for me, it's like, I'm going to go back to Brady Hoke for a second. So Brady Hoke comes in for Rich Rodriguez. Brady Hoke's a true Michigan man. If Brady Hoke was offered any job in the entire world to be the head football coach, he would have chose Michigan over anybody, over the Cowboys, over the Packers, over the Niners, over the Patriots, over Ohio State, over Notre Dame. Anybody in the world, he would have chose Michigan. And obviously you want that to work out because he's a true Michigan guy. I feel the same about Harbaugh. I feel like I do. I truly do. I feel this, and I want it to work out because I want this to be that homegrown story where Harbaugh is able to come back to Michigan and turn this program around. And I'll argue that he has. I will argue that all day long that he has done that. But I just feel, and this goes back to the conversations we've been having for a long time now. Is Michigan State a realistic expectation? Yes, it is. But is it a realistic expectation to say that we need to beat Ohio State? I don't know, and I don't want to get into Ohio State, but it goes hand in hand in the Jim Harbaugh talks. It just does. Jim Harbaugh's forever tied to his record against Ohio State. Ranked opponents in general. Hell, I think he literally just got his second ever ranked victory against Minnesota last week. It was like The dude literally doesn't win. And now I've already seen the statistic after this past Saturday's game. As an underdog in ranked game or whatever, just in an underdog in Vegas, Jim Harbaugh's 0-14. Mel Tucker is now 1-0. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah.
It seems like
it's very disappointing.
Yeah, anytime that we're picked to lose, we lose. Period. We don't have a shot to win games that we're picked to lose, and that it does suck. But it comes right back to the conversation. It's like, if not Harbaugh, then who? Who are we thrusting into this spot? Do you feel like we're close? Like, I don't know. It's a disappointing conversation because I first off, Harbaugh's not getting fired.
No, he's not.
This is a contract year. They will let him go. Like, they will just mutually part ways. It'll be over at the end of the year. And I believe that's where we're heading. I don't know if you agree. I believe that is where we're heading.
I think so.
I think
because D'Antonio, I think, is still tied into the program somehow. He's like a counselor, or he probably sweeps the floors at night. I don't know. But D'Antonio is part of the Michigan State program still. He stepped down. I think that's going to kind of how, if anything would go down, it'd be like that. Jim Harbaugh is going to be like, listen, I'm going to step away from coaching in period or general, or just to take a hiatus, or, we're going to promote within, or we're going to let the coaching search, happen at the end of the season. I'm always a fan of letting the coach finish out the season. I don't like firing coach mid-season. It creates too many problems. But with the shortened season, I think it's extremely important to just let the coaching staff stay and let it ride. If you cut the ties now in mid-season, which would, that you get guys in the transfer portal early, you got little hurt recruiting and all that stuff. And I posted on a message board just a little bit ago before we came on. I don't know who that you would pick from. I think the Michigan man rule, I think that should just get taken to the backyard and buried with the dog, because the last two Michigan men, I mean, again, it remains to be seen on what Jim Harbaugh, his legacy is here. But the Michigan man thing, it just, to me, is irrelevant now. It used to be a hot commodity, a top seat, a dream job. And that kind of died after Rich Rodriguez. And in the coaching search for Rich Rodriguez, you had guys turning the job down then too. So, people were like, what about Les Miles? Les Miles ran out of steam at LSU. He's at Kansas, which the dude's got some gonads taking that job, because he ain't going anywhere with that. And then everyone is clamoring for Charles Woodson. It's like, Charles Woodson is not going to take a head coaching gig. If anything, if you won the lottery, you get Charles Woodson on for D coordinator or the secondaries coach. I don't know what you do here, because this is obviously disappointing, and it's only the second game. We have a whole season, the rest of the season, to look forward to, and you got an enticing matchup, come Saturday.
Yeah, let's get into that. So the matchup predictor on ESPN has 56% heading towards Indiana, and to be honest, this was not swayed because of the loss. Before the season started, Indiana was picked by ESPN to beat Michigan this year. With that being said, Michigan is favored in Vegas by 3.5 points. These teams are shockingly similar across the board. Let me just give it to you straight. Both teams average 36.5 points a game. Okay. Michigan has allowed on average 25.5, Indiana 28. Total yards, Michigan far and away blows them out. That's what's crazy about this. 466 to 279. Okay. Yards allowed, they're almost dead even. 387 to 367. So about 20 yards difference, but it's pretty even as far as the grand scheme of things. This game's at Indiana. We talked about this back in the season preview. Michigan hasn't lost to Indiana. It's been years. I said this. I'm sticking to it. Michigan's going to beat Indiana this weekend. And I think they're going to do it fairly convincingly. And that's It's going to re-piss us Michigan fans off. It's going to piss you off, I know it. Because you're going to be like, why couldn't you just beat Michigan State? This is the problem that we have every single season. Every single season. And it goes back to, again, it goes back to the conversation we had. We said Michigan would lose 2 games this year. Ohio State and one other random game. I thought it was going to be Penn State. You thought it was going to be, I think, Wisconsin. You know, we talked about it maybe being Minnesota. It looks like it was Michigan State. And it sucks that it's Michigan State because that's like a game we needed to win. But everybody's talking about how we're going to probably lose to Indiana. No, we're not. This is a W. I'm willing to bet a lot on it. Anything I have downstairs, my left one, whatever it is, I think Michigan easily takes care of them. I truly do. I truly do. What is, first off, give me your take on this game, man.
Well, again, Indiana is literally the best underdog of all time because they are just so close to doing it every time, and they somehow pulled it off against Penn State last week, week 1. The thing about that is, obviously, we had a controversial call in that game. I don't think it was a touchdown. Indiana should be 1-1 right now, not 2-0. But that's
I thought
thing.
it was a touchdown.
Yeah, okay.
I thought it was.
So, regardless, I think this is going to be a neck and neck Indiana battle, and sometimes Michigan can blow these guys out in the second half. I think this is going to be a touchdown game. I think it's going to be about a 7-point victory for Michigan, and I'm not even comfortable. I don't know. I'm still on the fence, man. Penix is not a bad quarterback at all. Can make plays with his feet, and they have Wap Philor, wide receiver. I love that name. He is on the year, 10 catches for 173 yards and a touchdown, and kind of a speedster, kind of built like I believe the Naylor kid from Michigan State. Indiana has talent on offense, and I'm worried that they're going to have success throwing the ball on us.
At this point, everybody's going to. It's
true,
how we mask it. At this point, everyone's going to have success.
Oh yeah, but they're running Scott. He's pretty good too. I think this is going to be a neck and neck game. I don't necessarily think it's going to be like high scoring. I mean, it could be, but I think this is going to be a game that Michigan can probably edge out a 7-point victory on. But man, I'm going to be sweating. I'm going to be sweating this weekend. And I guess, I think the last time they were in Bloomington, it came down in almost overtime. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I have high hopes that this season's not over. And here's the thing. At this point, there's one thing saving Jim Harbaugh's job. It's running the table. It's beating Ohio State, and it's getting to Indy for
you
a
have
Big Ten
to.
title
you
game.
have to with the shortened season. There is literally, you have no wiggle room now. You have, starting the slate 0-0, and before the Minnesota game, you go in and you realize, okay, we got 8 games. We realistically can lose 1 game, and that is it. Because if you lose 2 games, you're done. There's no way you can make that up because Ohio State's not losing a single game until they get to Michigan, and probably going to win that one too. So if they drop this game, obviously Michigan is going to be written off for the Big Ten championship. So every game from here on out is a must win. Yeah. So they better dig down and ride it hard. What I need to see this weekend is I need to see the captains and the seniors of this defense and this offense. You gotta dig down and find something. Just like when they play Ohio State. When that game happens, you have to take your game to another level. You have to pray to God, Allah, whatever. You have to, unlock to get past overall 99 on Madden, whatever, and your stats. You have to bring it. And this weekend, I need to see the captains. I need to see the 5th-year seniors making the plays. And regardless if it's Indiana or Akron, you have to blow them out. You got to get that confidence back.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think this is first. I don't think this is a gimme game. This is going to be hard fought. I have enough faith in this team that they're going to get the W, and it's gonna get everybody talking why the hell couldn't you beat Michigan State? And truthfully, it's just what it is. If you're a betting man, bet Indiana. I mean, Michigan hasn't proven to beat teams on the road. Obviously, they did it once this year, but truthfully, I don't think Minnesota's that good. I mean, that's where we're at. They lost a lot this offseason. We talked about in the preview show. It clearly was too much to overcome. I mean, Winfield Jr.'s over in Tampa Bay. He's fixing to win Rookie of the Year. I mean, that's a huge loss for them. It's been a problem. Indiana, they've done enough to get on people's radar. They're 13th in the country. I think they're overhyped. I think Michigan beats them this weekend. I feel good about it.
I definitely think the 13th rank is a little high. I think they should be. Like at maybe 18. I think 13 is a little generous. And Michigan has to get by this game to get to Wisconsin, and Wisconsin has got their COVID issues going on, so that game is kind of up in the air right now. So if Michigan can get by an emotional win here in Bloomington, they might have a week off to regather themselves, which I think could be beneficial for them, because it seems like the Big Ten is not rescheduling these games if they are postponed due to the virus. So if that Wisconsin game does not happen, it helps them out a lot.
It does. It doesn't help them in the grand scheme of things, the college football playoff. Hypothetically speaking, I mean, again, this isn't a wish dream. I'm just talking here. If they were to beat Ohio State, they're still going to have to contend with Notre Dame to get in. Notre Dame's going to be there. They're still outside. Obviously, Clemson, Alabama, Georgia's still going to have a case to get in. Potentially Florida. There's still lots of teams out there. So, yeah, I don't know. It sucks that we're sitting here and we're having this discussion and we're 1-1 because we shouldn't be. We should be 2-0. But truthfully, I'm going to look at it in the positives. And the positives are Michigan hasn't turned the ball over this year. Correct? They didn't turn it over to the blocked punt. If you want to count that as a turnover, I guess. Michigan hasn't had a turnover outside the blocked punt this year. We can't typically say that. The formula for winning is not turning the ball over and being disciplined. Obviously, the secondary is going to be a massive issue, and it has to get fixed. But ultimately, I feel good. I mean, Joe Milton at least isn't careless with the ball. Unfortunately, last week was the type of game that Joe Milton's probably not set up to win. Shockingly, and I didn't like Shea Patterson, but if Shea Patterson was the quarterback, we probably win last week. Just because if you have to throw it 51 times, Shea was probably the guy in that situation with the receivers that we had and stuff. We're just not set to win that way. We need to be more speed and space, more running, more RPO option. 51 times is not the recipe. I'll keep saying it. I'll beat it to death. Hopefully we don't do that this weekend. I'd like to see 35 pass attempts and 35 to 40 rush attempts, and I think we win.
I think so too. Like I said, a 7-point victory. I think it's going to be like 27-20, and we improve to 2-1.
Yeah. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. You Michigan fans or you Michigan haters, you can hear us in our miseries, but you're listening to a couple of Wolverines who love the team. It just is what it is. We hate to see them lose, but we'll be back next week, hopefully talking about a W and what the plans are moving on to Wisconsin. So, Dan, thanks for joining. I hope you had some fun. Tell us where we can find you on social media, man.
Well, again, if you would like to follow me on Twitter, you can at MazeRage86. It's my personal account, so I do mostly a lot of trolling. So if you want to follow me there, you can. Or so I can get show you everyone I got blocked by Devin Gardner that one time. But anyways, I also been mentioned a while. I also run a Facebook site where on a daily basis you can win certified autographed sports memorabilia. Pretty much do contests daily, and we do all 4 major sports in the NFL, MLB, NBA, and the NHL, from jerseys, helmets, pucks, bats, anything. But you can win low cost per spot and hit something really nice. Some of the biggest names in the game: Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Brett Favre. You can go to the NHL. We have had Connor McDavid, whatever. But you go to Instagram or Facebook and you search for Fabled Sports Breaks, and you can follow me there on Instagram at fabled_sports_breaks. You can kind of follow the hits on what everything is pulled. Everything one on the page is posted there. It's a lot easier to scroll through. Everything's in grid form. If you go to Facebook, all the posts are kind of scrambled, but go to Facebook, type in Fabled Sports Breaks, search it. I'll ask you a couple of questions about your favorite teams, how you found the page, how you heard about us, and then answer those. We'll get you in, and then whether you spectate or watch or play, it's always a fun time.
Yeah, guys, I've plugged this a few times in the pod. I've had Dan on and talk about it a few times. It's a real neat way to throw in a low cost weekly amount for the chance of winning a multiple $100 helmet. I've won a couple of things on his page. It's super fun having your item come out of the box as a mystery and him announcing your name as the winner. It's super cool. Goes into a great collection, in the man cave or the she shed or whatever you got going on. So, with that being said, guys, again, we're here with heavy hearts with the loss, but we're hoping to be back next week talking about another Michigan W. So, Dan, thanks again, my man.
Absolutely, buddy. I'll see you next week. Go Blue.
Yeah, go Blue. Take care.